You don't apply other people's rules to whether or not you saw something when you know you saw something. And you don't apply other people's sort of doubts and fears about you losing it when you know very well that that's what you saw. It's where the heart of your story lies in these things. You can't doubt them because then you start doubting your own story and then you start losing the truth of that story, which you can't do. You have to know that everything that you have, that you read out from the paper is authentic. It's a truth that you know. You're conveying that truth to us. It's not for us to judge whether or not it's a truth when you know it to be one. So that's how secure you should feel. When you're going to tell a story like that, you have to go with it 100% of the way. You can't start doubting and asking yourself questions. Did I see this? Did I hear this? Whatever, it's part of your experience that shapes the telling of the story. And no one can, take it away from you or deny you any part of that experience when you want to tell the story. The things you brought up, like I was, the whole time people were talking about it, I still hadn't got past the source of the story. I couldn't go to the characters or who said what or what was that. Because the elements of it, like when we talked about, Tani Mahuta, Waipoua Forest and all that, and the whole understanding of the aliveness of these things in the Māori world, immediately denies that thing about whether or not a tree would talk or whether or not, because the concept, the whole mindset for these kinds of concepts is a totally different world. You're talking about a world where we believe everything in it has a memory of its own. Every stone, every tree, everything in it is something that lives, is alive. And we're connected to that, and we're all plugged into it. It's all part of the total, universe thing. So it fascinated me, the source of your story is what fascinated me. It fascinated me, the source of your story is what fascinated me. It's also so in line, when I talked about the Mexican storytellers and how they really disliked that in the Western world we add imagination as a filter to pass our stories through in order to be able to add something to the story. Where you started with your stories, how they start their stories. It comes from that place in the imagination where to them, that's where all story starts. Like they're really puzzled by this whole kind of compartmentalizing of elements in storytelling, like imagination and so on. So it's very much so. If you were telling the story and we were all from Latin America and Mexico and those countries, we would be enthralled and hanging on every word that came out of your mouth. Because that's how they respond to this kind of storytelling. Without doubt, without any kind of questioning about its validity in the world of storytelling, none of that would exist in the way that they would receive a story like that. And too often, like a lot of Māori stories used to start like that. I mean, all the stories around that I was brought up with around Lake Rotorua and all those strange little islands that appear and disappear and that through, I mean, I've seen them, one minute they're there, one minute they're not. And when you go on Lake Rotorua, as they did when there was a drought in the water level, there's stories about whole parasites sunken by tohunga who, because of some misdeed they've done in the tribe. People go out in the Just Cape, they can see whole petrified parasites under those waters. Those stories are as real as anything you can see of petrified parasites in the water. So what we're dealing with here is different realities. So that aren't make-believe worlds. They're different realities.